So what I'd like to do is maybe think of this in three parts. Um, I want to make a case for not new, but maybe another facet of a way that we could, as a community, think about this third leg of our stool in our minimum ecclesiology of community. So I'm going to make a case, like a biblical theological case. So you just have to survive that, and then I want to open it up to questions. So I actually want to try to, in the middle, dialogue a little bit about, okay, but what does that mean, or how does that work, or even what are the obstacles or barriers that you felt to achieving that sort of elusive condition that we have called community. And then I'll give some 7 or 8 ideas, tips, things, a modest proposal for what I would say you should do to sort of achieve or discover or experience this third part of the ecclesiology. So Tommy referenced it, but this is just an important part of saying, mission, worship, and community. These are the 3 things that we say make up a church. This is what when you look at those 3 things happening at the same time and place, you're looking at the church. But okay, so obviously we have a whole kind of body of work on this, and as I thought more about this for you and for today, I sort of stumbled on, I don't want to say it's a correction. I don't think I should make a correction here, but maybe an improvement, alteration in the way that we've talked about this and thought about this part. Why are we laughing? Oh, I don't know. So I'm not gonna make. No one has to panic. Tell me, Lucas. No one needs to panic. I'm not going to replace community. I mean, that's like branded now. I don't know how we get rid of that. At this point, there's no getting rid of it. We have told people everywhere. So we can't change it, but maybe we should. So we'll just have a very internal, private conversation about what else this could mean for us, or maybe is there a better metaphor? And what I mean to say is this word: family. We all have one, both extended and local. We have some sort of family, probably, or we come from somewhere. I'm just curious, just as a survey, who would say you are a part of a healthy family? Like you identify as being a part of a healthy family? I see some of this happening. Okay. Who would say, nah, dysfunctional? I come from a dysfunctional family. Anybody? Come from? Oh, so we're going to make a distinction then. Where you come from and where you currently are. And that's an important revelation, isn't it? That when we use the word family, we mean it in a couple different ways. So in one sense, we can talk about where we come from, the people we are from, right? The bigger extended family. And almost all of us, I would say probably 90-95% of us would say that group of people, this extended, larger family group that we come from, is a mess, and it's full of messiness. Correct? Anybody disagree with that? Just give me some time with your family. I'll prove that that's true. But then we also have this smaller nuclear version, something that we've tried to forge out of our own marriages and our own kids, and maybe trying to improve on or break cycles or generational stuff or whatever. Right? But I'm just curious, what makes a good family? Like in your mind, what's the distinction between healthy and unhealthy, between functional and dysfunctional? Just shoot out some things of what makes a healthy family. Yeah, Charlie?
Caring for others.
Okay. So, like heart, caring, love. What else? Like trusting each other. Okay. Okay. What else makes a healthy family? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, stability. Emma? Conflict resolution. Nice. Honesty. So you do have conflict. So a healthy family is not a family without conflict. Yeah.
Being able to be truly vulnerable towards
Okay. Yeah. And that probably goes to trust. If you don't trust people, you won't. You'll put the walls up or whatever. Been hurt before, Ryan?
enjoy time together.
You like each other? Yeah. You have some fun? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I actually think that's really important. Charlie's on a roll. Hit me.
Being there for others when they need help the most.
Okay. So you show up for each other.
Yes.
Someone's in need. I mean, this is how we get our roofs put on. This is how we move, typically, you know. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Say more about that. Like you do it once, but you don't do it again?
You learn what each other's love language is, and you adjust and adapt to each other.
You get better at loving each other. Great. Yeah. What makes an unhealthy family?
Consistency.
Makes an unhealthy family? You're still back on the healthy. Yes, agreed. Okay. So unhealthy would be inconsistent. What else makes unhealthy, Charlie?
Not trusting each other.
Okay. Lack of trust. Okay. All the opposites. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about instability. I think it's an interesting
Chaos. Disrespect. Anger. Don't say anything about dysfunctional families. You don't know anything about that. You've only seen it on TV. Unhealthy. What's your experience? You know, like what are some ways that you've seen your family maybe hurt you or hurt others? Enabling bad behavior. Yeah.
not being present.
Okay. Just not being there. Neglect. Yeah.
Gossip.
Gossip. Families love to talk about each other. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Manipulation. Okay. Yeah, there's sides to all those things in there. I have a pretty big family, pretty big nuclear family. You know, I have 6 kids, and they're all adults now except for this one. But he's pretty mature, so really I have 6 kind of, you know, autonomous humans with a lot of agency, and what I'm discovering with being a parent to adults is that there's a multiplication of kind of relational demands. You know, now all their relationships, all their decisions. You know, it's hard to believe, but it's actually was easier and simpler when you could just strap them into a car seat. You know, I mean that's like a little prison. You can take them anywhere you want them to go. I mean, even the leashes. We literally have leashes for kids. You're like, I'm going on errands, and you're coming. And we're not talking about it, and we don't have to disagree or agree or anything. There's a high level of control when you have littles. And of course, there's a multiplication of complexity when you are trying to still be in direct relationship with adults. Now, why do we know that? We already know that because that's what it's like to be in ministry. You know, I have a friend who I've become closer to the last couple of years. Her name is Lauren Smith. Some of you may know her if you're at all connected in the sort of foster care and adoption world in Tampa Bay. She's really truly a saintly person. I mean, her and her husband have taken hundreds of kids into their home over the years. She's called as an expert witness whenever there's a need for that. She's worked in adoption particularly for some 30 years. She has 20 kids. She has 5 biological children and 15 adopted. So of the kids that have come through her home and lived with her, she has adopted 15 of them. So can you imagine having 20 children? Yeah, it's hard to do that. I mean, you can take the ones you have currently, she just has incredible stories and a lot of hardship, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. There's a multiplication of complexity, chaos, and suffering having that. She has 34 grandkids currently. So I was at an event Friday. Monica and I were at an event, and Lauren happened to sit by us at the table. So it was just a treat to be able to spend a little time with her. And we were asking her about, I was particularly just sort of dialed in and interested because one of her sons was there. And so I was really interested in, how do you do that? Like, how do you keep up with that many kids relationally? And all their drama and all their decisions and all. I'm like, how often do you talk to your kids? Like, do they like, are you on the phone all day to just your kids? Is that just your job, just responding to your kids? Because I feel like if I took the amount of time I spend sort of caring for, discipling, mentoring, just being there with my kids, and I multiplied that by 4, I don't know how I'd have a job or how I'd have a life. So it's really interesting. It's a lot to manage. Fascinating. Actually, one of her sons was there, and he married a woman who was also there, who Monica and I recognized. We said, "Wait, that's so and so," and they used to come to our house church. And then they came over and told us this really lovely story of like a kind of triangulation of actually how we had been family to them. So there was this kind of, I don't know, discovery that I had between both the complexity of having a lot of kids, of choosing to open up your family unit, your sense of family, to people who are not born to you, and just how similar that is to what we try to do with microchurches. How much it is the same. And actually, the more people we take on, and actually hundreds of people have also, hundreds is an exaggeration, more than 100 people have lived in Monica and I's home permanently, like lived with us, not just came through or visited, but actually called our residence home over the years. And so I started thinking about that too, a sort of fostering that we have done for adults, for people that didn't need a family, but in a sense, we were a family. Got me thinking that there is some kind of psychosocial barrier, actually, between our conceptions of the church and our conceptions of family. There is some sort of separation, not of church and state, but of church and family. Stay with me for a second. Families we see as particularly autonomous units. In fact, it's one of the places where churches really respect the family. They really respect the leadership and autonomy, the sort of financial independence of families. We don't meddle in families. Churches they'll meddle in your life, your personal life, but they won't meddle so much in families. It's an interesting kind of almost invisible psychological barrier there. And maybe that's good because we need to respect the autonomy of the family. But I actually think that whatever that dynamic is, good or bad, neutral, it hurts our view and our understanding of what the church actually is. Which is, the more I think of it, a family made up of families. This is what the church is. It is a family made up of families. It's interesting, there's a kind of urge in modern companies, modern business, to refer to the team, the company, as a family. It's an interesting thing that some companies will do. They'll say, we're like a family. We what? They refer to themselves as a family? Okay, there you go. I don't eat at the Olive Garden, but thank you for that. I can't remember ever eating anything good at the Olive Garden.
How dare you? That's disrespect.
Guys, go to better restaurants. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
That's on you. That's on you. But Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, has in his most recent book, he makes an argument that at least at Netflix, he does not allow people to refer to employees as family. It's a bad idea, and he makes an argument for why it's a bad idea. I really agree with that. I work with Cohatch now, and Cohatch also liked to use the word family. And my urge to them was like, guys, let's not do that. Let's push off that. Let's think of ourselves more as a team, whatever. Because the truth is, we're not a family. We're not. We want to use the word because we like the idea of the positive connotations that family brings. But the truth is, as soon as someone needs to get fired, and this happens, guess what? We're not family anymore. Suddenly, this guy was family, and this has happened to us. This guy was family, and now we're like, please no communication with this person. I'm like, wait, I thought we were family. I thought he was family. And if he's family, yeah, very removed. If he's family, then I need to find out what's going on and make sure he's okay. And I'm like, we're actually not allowed to communicate with this person. So how is that a family? It's not. So we want to sort of pull in the image of a family and place it on secular things, but it can't be done. In fact, maybe the church is the only place where family can be applied outside of biology. And maybe even something deeper there. Commitment, trust, sharing, bonding, even love. We like those concepts as they're attached to the idea of family. But when compensation, self-interest, fiduciary concerns, when those things are there, it's not a family, is it? It's something else. But listen, a case can be made that the church is as much or more family for those of us who have come to believe in Jesus than our biological families. So just stay with me. Of course, I'm not proposing one instead of the other. I'm not proposing that you have to choose this instead of that. I mean, Jesus may have said that, but I'm not proposing that. Rather, it's the ideal nuclear family might just be an illustration of the design intention for the church. And all of us have an idealized version of what the nuclear family can look like. But maybe that's maybe that's somehow connected to the design intention God has for the church. So if we talk about, if I were today to talk about something like loneliness, and the idea then that the antidote to loneliness is community or fellowship, friendship, the third leg of our minimum, as the antidote to that great growing and epidemic need. What we might be tempted to do is construct a view of the church as something that is transitory. In other words, I'm lonely, I need company. And because we experience profound loneliness, we just need a place to belong. And if we were to do that, sort of grab that low-hanging fruit as a definition of the church, I wonder if we would come up short of the actual mystical definition of what koinonia is, or what actually it means to be the family of God, which is what we are. So stay with me. Transitory versus permanence. So we all need friends, of course, and we all want to be loved and known by a group of people. But only family, the only concept of relationships that convey permanence is family. So here's what I'm saying. If the church is the highest form of friendship, if that's how we think of it, then of course it's appealing, but it's also something that can be replaced. Friends come in lots of different types. I have my work friends, I have my sports friends, I have my whatever, reading group friends. I can have groups of friends, but they're all replaceable. Do you understand? It's all transitory. It meets a need temporarily, but there is no covenant in those friendships. I mean, we know this because we all have the experience of having been friends with people and now no longer being friends with them. Of having ex-friends. We're saying we were friends with them before, but now we're not friends. We're no longer friends. It's a sad truth. It's a sad reality but we don't say that. We rarely ever say that about our family. We don't say that person's not my brother anymore. We can say he's a complete piece of work and I don't want anything to do with him, but he's still my brother. He's a complete psycho. We don't let him in our house, but he's still my brother. You see what I'm saying? Permanence is built into the idea of family. And no matter how bad people behave, that condition does not seem to change. That's not true with friendship. I mean, in that sense, this other idea of just community, of just building friendships, that it's maybe more, by definition, more transitory. That means it's something that works for a season for us. Until times change, or I change, or you change, or interests change, or someone with more sway in your life falls out with me, and so their friendship is more important with them than it is with me, and so I lose you as a friend because of that. And so this weaker construction, in this weaker construction of what the church is, of what it is to be in relationships in the church, makes us relational nomads. We're really wandering the earth, looking for this elusive thing we call community. It comes and it goes. We know deep relationships are our birthright, but we never quite experience them because, listen, this is my core idea. We never really experience them because they are not sealed by blood or covenant. Now, Monica is my family through covenant, right? We do not share DNA, but she is my family, and for as long as we both live, she will be my family. And that's undeniable. Because there is a marriage covenant, but also if you know us, you know that we're as much, she and I are family as much as any two people could be family. But that is through covenant. It's not biological. Now our kids, on the other hand, are family through blood. We do share DNA, and because of that, we are family, undeniably family, for as long as we live. And my kids can leave us, they could hate us, they could stop listening to us, but they'll always be our kids. And we will always be their parents, whether they like it or not. You can't get other ones. We're the ones. We'll always be there. We'll always be that for them. Do you feel the difference? The permanence of what I'm saying? Blood and covenant conveys permanency. Now, again, I mentioned this, but I've had the privilege and the challenge of stepping in the last few years into the world of foster care and adoption, the system of care in our region, and beginning to understand it and meeting a number of agency heads and leaders and becoming a part of, really helping to design solutions to some of the problems that we face in addressing and building a better system of care for our about 3,000 kids who are in care in Hillsborough County in particular, and about 5,000 total in the kind of Tri-County area. And it's interesting because the more I have learned about this cause, this area of concern, and the more you realize that there's all these different spokes to the wheel, all these different aspects of the way we deal with it and parts that need to be played to construct a holistic system of care. Everyone agrees on one word. Everyone agrees on one word. And that word, everyone agrees to this goal of this one word. And that word is permanency. That whatever, when a child gets out of their home, that is instability. And as quickly as we can get them back into a permanent home and give them back stability, we understand that stability is tantamount to life, to being a healthy person, a healthy child. That you cannot be a healthy child, that it's somehow an inalienable right of every child to have stability, to have a permanent home, a place that whether you like your parents or don't, they're your parents. Whether you like it or not, that's your home. Every child needs that. Interestingly, adoptions, and the sort of the part of the pie which has to do with adoptions. Adoptions, this is funny because I listen to these people. I'm not from this world. It's all something that I'm learning. I hear everybody, whenever they talk about adoptions, they always refer to it as a forever family. So when someone says they've adopted somebody, whether it's a child or whether it's the parents, they always talk about their forever home, their forever family. Forever is the key word there. It's about going from impermanence to permanence, from transience to permanence. Adoption is a powerful concept, actually. Because again, adoption is covenant, not blood. But it works the same. Works the same. Because look, kids who lose their families, we recognize they're in crisis. A child without a family is in crisis. Guys, stay with me. A child without a family is in crisis. We get that. We somehow know that life, at least for a child without a family, is a catastrophe. Okay? So think about that and what it means to be a part of some expression of what we call the church. But only we think about the church as something that is temporary. And if that's true, then we are, all of us, only ever being fostered by our churches. All of our relationships to the church is a fostering relationship. Never permanent. Never a forever home. Can you not see what I mean? That are we not coming up short of what it means to be the church? If that's how we think of community. If that's how we think of relationships with each other. But we don't understand the nature of the church as a family, and so no alarm bells are going off. We come in and out of churches. We're fostered by one church after another, one church community after another, but no alarm bells ever go off and nobody ever says this is a crisis. Children without a family is a crisis. And again, what may be our birthright is possibly only achievable through covenant, through blood or covenant. Yeah, some of you know, I mean, Jeremy's not here today, but I'll tell a story about him. Some of you know this story. Some of you will remember this time. Many of you won't. Most of you probably won't. But there was a time, maybe let's say 6 years ago, maybe, when I was the focus of quite a bit of criticism. And some of it was probably fair. But it was a small group of people that decided, I needed to be brought down. And so what that did and what that does is it causes everyone around you, every relationship that you have, to sort of hit pause on you as a person. And that's probably right. That's probably how it should be. So if someone were to accuse you of something, let's say, what does everyone around you do? I mean, the right thing is not to just say, well, I reject that out of hand. There's no way my friend could have ever done that. Of course, that's not true. You have to consider the possibility that these accusations or criticisms are true. And so what that does is that makes people take a step back from you and to consider, is that true? Are these allegations true, or are these characterizations? For me, it was more characterizations. But are these characterizations true? Has this been my experience of this person? And what do I do with that information if it is true? What do I do? And so what happened was, and what happens in these situations, some of you have probably been through something similar. What happens then is you don't, it's not like you lose all your friends, but you think you've lost all your friends, which isn't true. And again, I don't fault anyone. You have to take a step back. You really do. You have to consider. You have to adjudicate. You have to judge in your own mind. What do I do with this? Is this true? Do I step back into this relationship? Do I step away fully? Do I trust this person anymore as a leader? And, there were some aspects of these criticisms that had to be kind of just looked at, just vetted. Like, did that happen? Did that not happen? Is that true? Is that not true? And so Jeremy, because Jeremy was very close to me through all these years, Jeremy was a source of, reporting information. People could ask him. They could say, like, is that true? Did that happen? And he could say, in many cases, no, that's not what happened. And because he stood up, not for me necessarily, but for what he perceived as the truth of the events or whatever, he then became the subject of said criticism. Like, oh, if you're gonna take his side, or if you're gonna argue for him, then you'll be the target as well. And now all of a sudden he's experiencing real, loss, real sense of loss from relationships because of me. And I all I could say is what it feels like to be in that seat I was in, and you just hate it. You hate that it's happening to you, but you hate even more that it's happening to people that you love, to people that you care about. And I wanted so badly to just follow my sword or quit or whatever, if I could just ease that tension for the people around me. Some things I could do, some things I could give away or step away from, some things I just had to, hold the line, hold the truth as best I understood it. But there was a moment, some of you know this story, but there was a moment where Jeremy came into my office and he just said, Brian, I want you to know. He sat me down. He said, I just need to tell you something. I said, okay. He said, I want you to know that I am called by God to you. I'm with you. No matter what happens. And what I understood that to mean is whether you're right or whether you're wrong, I won't walk away from you. Because God has called me to walk beside you. And nobody said that to me except for him. Hundreds, thousands of people who would have admired me, appreciated me, whatever. Now, after he said that, some people I think followed suit, but it was really Jeremy's own, and I think at some cost to him, to say, I will stand by you. It doesn't mean I agree with everything you've ever done. It doesn't mean I approve of everything. And if there's something we need to correct, we'll correct it, but I'm with you. Guys, that's permanence. That's covenant. It's not like Jeremy and I went to an altar, put rings on each other's fingers. But is it any less important or any less powerful to feel that God has called me to this person and I'm not allowed to leave? Like the calling that I felt to you, that I felt all those years ago, God's not released me from that calling. And I'm called not just to a mission, because that was the thing. Everybody wanted to be part of the underground. The underground is the coolest thing. But whatever, fruit from the poisonous tree, it was like cool to be next to me, and then it wasn't cool to be next to me. And what I found out was Jeremy was like, I'm called to be next to you. And I'm with you. Good or bad, hell or high water, I'll stand with you. And of course, he's been true to that commitment, that promise. That's not just friendship, is it? It's something else. And it's not just a commitment to the mission or even just a commitment to Jesus. It somehow found its way into a commitment to people, to particular people, to look at a particular group of people and say, I'm with you. And what is that if not family? That's what it means to be family. To say, you are my brother, you are my sister, you are my spiritual mother, my spiritual father, and that's just how it is. Now you can go out, you can do things I don't approve of, and we can have all kinds of problems, but you are still my brother, you are still my sister. That's what permanency means. Permanency is meant to be a part of the life in the church. And somehow we have to find a way to unlock that. So let's take a deeper look for a second at what Jesus actually creates in his own body through his life and his death and his resurrection and his reign through both blood and covenant. So this is what Jesus does. First, he comes to and from a family. Israel, what is Israel? Israel is a person's name. Do you understand that? Israel is a guy's name. And all of his lineage, all of his kids and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. That is the nation of Israel. And out of the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, come a Messiah, a promised Messiah. Jesus, in the line of David, he is from Israel. What is Israel? Israel is a family. Jesus comes from a family to a family. He only really preaches, he only really brings his message, which is for the whole world, which is for every tongue, tribe, and nation, but he actually only brings it to his family. The disciples he called are all Palestinian Jews. He calls his family members to walk with him. All of the disciples are a part of this larger extended family group. He wanders the countryside with this group of students and other followers that he gathers through covenant. The whole thing begins, the whole relationship that he has with his disciples begins with covenant. What happens when he says, you come follow me? In other words, you promise yourself to me, and what I do, I promise I will make you fishers of men. I will make something of you. I will turn you from disciples to apostles. You will be the people who usher in this new world, this new kingdom. The whole relationship, the forging of the 12, is covenant. He makes and forges covenant with them. When people asked him about his biological family, do you remember this? He said that his brothers and sisters and mother were those that do the will of the Father who sent him. And by the way, that doesn't mean he was like, I don't care about biological family, because his mother was a part of that group. So when he says, no, my family are the people that do the thing that are with me in this mission that God has called me to, that included his mother, and included his brother James, who would later become the head of the Jerusalem church. I'm not sure how his other brothers, maybe his other brothers were doing their own thing, but it included biological family too. But this is a supersession. What does that mean? He's saying, okay, biological family, important, but not as important as this. This is actually more of how I see my family. Of all the names that Jesus could choose to refer to God, the one he chose most frequently was what? Father. Nobody refers to God, no Jewish rabbi refers to God in this way until Jesus. And of all the names of God, of all the ways that God could be referred to from the Torah, he chooses this very niche, very sort of peripheral way of referring to God. He refers to him almost always in entirety as Father. The Father. Our Father. When the disciples ask him, how should we pray? This is a big part of our cadence. This is a big part of our discipleship model, whatever. All these other rabbis have their way of praying. What's our way of praying? Jesus says, when you pray, the first thing you pray is, you start by saying, our Father. Not my Father, your Father, our Father. What is he doing? He's forging the idea right there in their relationship with God, a relationship with each other. And right there, you cannot, in other words, when you pray with Jesus, for Jesus, in Jesus' name, when you pray, you're always immediately connected to other people. So the first word is our. It's a plural. It's the person I'm about to talk to does not just belong to me. The second word is familial. The second word is patrilineal. The second word is to say, our Father. In other words, to say, now the relationship that I have with everyone, which I'm reminded of in the first word of every prayer I ever pray, the relationship that I have with all these other people is a familial relationship. Actually, the one that I prayed to is my Father, but he's also your Father. He's also your Father, and I can't forget that. So everything I'm about to say, everything that comes after in those prayers, is all framed and shaped by this idea that the one I'm talking to is my Father and your Father. That we're a part of a family. Even his teaching, you guys just finished the book of John. Even his teaching about sin and freedom from sin. This is amazing. Even Jesus' teaching about sin and freedom from sin was connected to family. It was connected to being part of a family. Remember this? Is this John 8? To the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus said, if you hold my teaching, you are really my disciples, and you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Remember that? What's the next line? They answered, we are Abraham's descendants. We've never been slaves to anyone. How can you say that we'll be set free? Fascinating connection that they make to freedom. We're not slaves. We're the sons of Abraham. And Jesus is saying the same thing. He's saying if you're my disciples and you follow my teaching, you'll be free from sin. They said, well, we're not slaves to begin with. And Jesus replied, listen, this is amazing. Very truly, I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin, and now a slave has no permanent place in the family. But a son belongs to it forever. So, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Jesus is saying, what I'm offering to you is sonship and a place in the family of God that makes you free from sin. And there's that word again, permanent, forever. What is Jesus offering us? He's offering us a place, a seat, as sons and daughters of the Father. And that cannot be changed. That's forever. Permanency, adoption. Adoption is like marriage in that way. You know, in marriage, two separate people become one person, that idea. They don't really, they're still two people, but something spiritually happens where they sort of become one person, and if you hate your wife or you hate your husband, you hate yourself. If you resist your wife or resist your husband or hurt your wife or hurt your husband, you hurt yourself. If you lie to your wife or you lie to your husband, you're lying to yourself. There's a union that happens in the covenant. The same thing is true for adoption. Someone who's a child over here that doesn't belong to these parents over here, now an adoption happens, and guess what? They are one family now. The two are brought together in permanency, in mystical union. This is why the New Testament refers to us so often as his body. Actually, and this not competing metaphor, but complementing metaphor, that actually we're the body of Christ. And I don't think being the body of Christ is the higher metaphor. I think family is the higher metaphor. But why does the body help us? Because to realize that a family is one thing. A family becomes one thing. A unified mystical union that happens in family, in adoption, in covenant. And because that mystical union is there, now although they are many, they are one thing. And this is why Jesus says, look, to me, you're like my body parts. And you don't hate your hand or hate your leg. You might think it's a little fat or whatever, but that you need it, you appreciate it. That's what it means to be part of his body, his very body, parts of one thing, one person. And this family is both forged and redefined by Jesus' blood sacrifice. This is as important as the covenant. It is both blood and covenant that make us a family. And both are still valid and virtuous in their own right. I'm not saying that nuclear families don't matter, biological families. No, that has tremendous value because they are types and shadows of this greater thing. We ought to love our families, to do everything we can to be Christ-like, for our families to be the church. Precisely because they are meant to bear witness to what the church is. That is to say, the blood of Jesus makes us a family, and the covenant of Jesus that he cuts through the breaking of his own body also makes us a family. Think of this. I know I'm going on, but just hang with me. Think of this, Ephesians 2, in light of what I'm saying. Therefore, remember that formerly you who are Gentiles by birth were called uncircumcised by those who called themselves the circumcision. This is, okay, what did Gentiles do when they're not Israel? How do they get brought into the family of God? Remember that at one time you were separate from Christ, excluded from the citizenship in Israel. and foreigners to the covenants and of the promise, and without hope and without God in the world. But now, in Christ Jesus, you who were once far away have been brought near by the blood of Christ. So what does his blood do? What does his sacrifice on the cross do? It somehow mystically unifies people that are not able to be unified, that are different, separate. This is what his blood does. This is why to be a provocateur of division, to be somebody that goes around dividing Christians from each other, is to be demonic. It is to work completely against what the cross accomplishes. To sow division is not just a bad habit. It's not just a bad character trait. It is to become anti-God. It is to be anti-Christ in the world. To take two Christians who have some level of harmony with each other, to step in the middle, to whisper in this ear, whisper in that ear, and to make them dislike each other or hate each other is anti-Christ. It is to work against what the blood of Christ accomplishes on the cross. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility by setting aside in his flesh, the law with its command and regulations. His purposes was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. It's marriage. It's an example. It's an example of mystical union. Not just for Jews and Gentiles. Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers. But you are fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his household. You hear that? Members of his household. Welcome home. What does the cross do? What does it accomplish? It creates a family out of people that cannot and would not ever be family. We are doubly sealed, and the bond is in him, not in us. Not in our family resemblance with each other, not in our promises we do or do not make to each other. We are family, whether you like it or not. And those crazy people, those Christians you don't like, if they truly are regenerate, if they've truly accepted the gifts of God and received the covenant promise and sacrifice, guess what? They're your crazy uncles and aunts. I'm sorry. But that's already happened. It's already a reality. We are a family formed and forged by something so strong that heaven and earth itself, the angels, have to obey it. Listen to the family language intertwined here in this very ontological text, Romans 8. This is the plan of God for you and for me. It's the deepest expression of what we are and what we are to become. And essentially, it's inclusion in a family. Listen to Romans 8. In this lens, listen to Romans 8. For he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. In love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship. Through Jesus Christ, in accordance with the pleasure in his will, to the praise of his glorious grace, which he has freely given us in the one he loves. For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are the children of God. The Spirit of God, a part of the work of the Holy Spirit does in the world, is testify to that person you don't like or that person you do like who is in Christ, to say, to whisper to you, to your spirit, the Spirit of God to your spirit, that's your family member. That is your family member. Suddenly, everywhere we look at the letters in the New Testament, Galatians 6, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. 1 Peter 5, resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. So we're not just talking about your microchurch, we're talking about people all over the world who are in Christ Jesus. They are also your family members. And to know that they suffer is somehow a boon to your own courage. And for this reason, Ephesians 3, for this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth derives its name. Did you hear that? I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth derives its name. Every family is a shadow of his family. Every family is an attempt to replicate his family. And your inclusion in his family because of the sacrifice of Jesus is the greatest family that you can be a part of. The last text I'll give you just real quick. Hebrews 2. But the one who makes people holy and those who are made holy are of the same family. God who makes us holy, and we who are made somehow holy over a great arduous journey, we are the same family. And this line is just breathtaking. So Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers and sisters. Jesus is not ashamed to call that Christian that you have an issue with a brother or a sister. God as our Father, Jesus as our brother. This is fundamental to the construction of what it is to be the church. Now consider something like the story of the two sons in Luke 15. One prodigal and the one that stays back like a jerk and says, I feel entitled, and why are you doing nice things for him and you don't do anything for me? Remember the story? The one son is angry and entitled. And we think the story is either about prodigals, people that go away from the faith, or maybe it's about the father who waits at home for the return of the lost son. Or maybe it's about the Pharisees. Maybe it's about the religious people who don't get it. Or maybe the whole story is about Jesus. Listen, maybe the whole story is actually about the son the father deserves, who isn't in the story. It's actually that what we see in the second son, in the older son, is a breach, a failure to understand what family is, a failure to understand the heart of the father. And actually the son that the father deserves is a son that would go, Dad, you care about little brother? I'm going to go get him. I'll leave and I'll bring him back. The older brother who goes out to seek and save his brother who is lost. Sent by the Father to bring lost sons and daughters home. That's Jesus. Jesus is the son the Father deserves. He's the son the story cries out for. He's the missing link in the story. He's the one we all actually need. It's a messianic story because the Messiah is missing, you see. He is the missionary son who leads the procession and joins in the celebration. This is the family that's forged by God. I know it's late. I'm going to take just a second, and I have some things I'd love to get practical with you. But this is my sort of case for not a change or an alteration, but maybe a filling out of what we mean by community. I don't have any problem with our use of the word community, koinonia, relationship, fellowship with each other. I think it's perfectly biblical, perfectly applicable. And maybe the earlier, a younger version of me would have been attracted to that because it wasn't connected to family. You know, my own dysfunction, my own belief that I needed to find something other than family, something healthier than family. But here we are, full circle, to recognize that there might be something even greater. That community is a feature of family. You know, and maybe the only way to really get to community is to somehow form families of faith. But I just want to hear from you. I'm going to take maybe 5-10 minutes and just respond to you. And then I have a couple of things I'll share. But questions, agree, disagree, and we can get practical if you want, like things you're struggling with to form these kind of relationships. What keeps it from happening? Why does this not happen? What are your kind of challenges or questions as you try to build something like this, create something like this in your microchurches? Yeah.
We talked a lot about our relationship with other believers, but I'm just wondering how this applies to people that might not be.
It's a good question. I think and anyone can respond, by the way, to these questions. I think it's a group discussion, but I think what I'm talking about is this mystical union that's only possible with people who are in Christ, right? But do not healthy families provide places for everyone? You know, if we have strong, healthy families, they are places where people who have no family can find love, respite, life. I remember in the old neighborhood, kids would sometimes drop in, and just random people would come by and want money or whatever. And we would always say, yeah, won't give you any money, but dinner's at 6. So, you know, anybody's welcome. And because we had a lot of people that lived together in the same house, we always had a big dinner table with lots of people and lots of food. And there was always room for one or two more. And I remember there was a kid from the neighborhood who came one time, and he was not sure what to do because he never really sat at a dinner table with a family and had a meal. And he was openly anxious about that, like he didn't know what to do. And I felt like he told somebody, I don't think it was me, but he told somebody, don't worry, I know what to do. I've seen this on TV. So you create that table with real family, with the mystical union. But anyone can come to it, and anyone can experience something that maybe they haven't experienced before. So I do think it is a tool for mission. And in fact, and the argument I've made before in terms of this approach and what is primacy, mission is primary. So I would say it this way: come for mission, stay for the community. Come for the mission, stay for the community. You come, how do you know, in the sea of millions of people that believe in Jesus, how do you find your little tribe, your little family? I think it's through mission. I think it's through calling. I think it's through, like, we're all called to this neighborhood or this place or these people. And then we find each other, we covenant with each other. And then, yeah, the mission is how we found each other, but now we make permanency with each other. What else? So I think that is a very important and insightful comment / question. But let me build on it. So marriage is a declarative act. It's like war. You're not actually married until you say, I do. And actually the saying of I do is the thing that makes you married. It has to be, it has to come out of your mouth, right? Just like war is a declarative act. If I say, we are now at war with said country, no shots have been fired, but you are now at war because you say you're at war, right? It's a declarative act. The question is, does this apply? Does it need to be explicit? It's a really good question. And what I would say is, no, it does not need to be explicit. Here's why. Because you're already married. The covenant is already formed. Jesus did that already. Your acknowledgement or disacknowledgement of it is irrelevant, except in practice. So the example would be, I'm already married to Monica, but there are days when I don't act like a covenant partner. And maybe weeks, maybe you could go long periods of time where you're not treating that person like your covenant partner. You forget your covenant that is already made. And it's not like I need to go back and say, hey, let's get a priest in here or something. Let's do another explicit marriage. No, I just have to remember and wake up to that bond that already exists and honor it. And what I'm arguing is that Jesus has already formed a family between us. We just don't admit it. We just don't pay attention to it. We don't acknowledge it. We don't accept it. And instead, I'm not saying this is something you can do tomorrow. I mean, the next time you're with your microchurch, if you just look around the room and go, this is my family. It's something that happens inside your head. And you go, this is my family. Now, I'm not saying there are not times for explicit where I go back to Monica and say, look, I'm sorry, I've blown it. I'm going to re-say what I've already said before. I re-say what has already been said before because it needs to be reiterated. And that Jeremy's story is a good example of that. It meant a lot to me. But the truth is we were already brothers. And even all the people that pushed me away were still my brothers and sisters. Like my bad behavior, their bad behavior could not sever that covenant because Jesus made the covenant. It cannot be broken by us. We can deny it. We can run away from it. We can act like we're not family, but we are. And maybe that's my response to that. What else?
Just to consider this from a microchurch perspective, in the sense that, microchurches are organized around a mission. As people hear calling microchurches to expand, multiply, create new things, new families get created. They go off to serve the poor in that community, and you go off to serve board gamers in that community.
But you never stop being family, even if you don't see them. I did finish Michelle Obama's new book, which we talked about. My favorite chapter in Michelle Obama's book is a chapter about her mother. And she talked about all her mother's little sayings that she had and so on. And one of them was like, I'm not raising kids, I'm raising adults. And her mother's approach was basically, her mother was like always trying to do the absolute least she could do for her kids. So that they learn to be, and look, Michelle went to Yale and then Harvard Law. She did okay, so something worked out. Mom did something right. But the idea of raising adults, not kids, we don't want dependency in our microchurch families where you always come to me. We want to see autonomy. We want calling. We want freedom. That's what a real family is. A real family welcomes and allows people to leave. Not leave forever, not leave your heart. That's the other thing, is your kids can move away. Your kids can go. I know friends who have kids that are all over the world. Their kids are all over the world, and they never stop being their children. Wherever God leads you, wherever you are, we're still a family. And when and how we can come back together, we do, and we remember that. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Families aren't something we leave when we turn 18. You might leave home, but if you're doing it right, you still need your parents. You still need input. You still need love. You might need money from time to time. What else? Anything else? Yeah, Stacey.
I'm going to be often processing this, but I think I'm trying to think about, I guess my concern is, okay, well, I didn't know that was something I even discussed with you kind of thing. So, I don't know, how do you balance that piece and the whole, codependency and investment and unhealthy relationships and, the appropriateness of, boundaries?
What an important point. An observation. So look, maybe part of the reason why we are reticent or reluctant to pull family in, just even the underground, is because we're afraid that gives more relational power in those small units, which can be abused and people can be harmed. If suddenly, hey, we're your family, then you have new levers of control and manipulation that are there. And particularly because a lot of us have experience of that in families. Of the family is not a healthy hierarchy, and abuse and manipulation, some of the stuff you guys said earlier. And so maybe to keep that at arm's length, we've just said, well, we'll just say that the church isn't a family. But look, I think that while I can say on the one hand that is a very valid concern and threat to a healthy church, a healthy microchurch, it is an overcorrection to then say we are not a family. And we lose something which we cannot get back when we refuse to see each other as family. I think what we're striving for, dreaming about, is a healthy family. And maybe if we imagine God is our Father and Jesus is our brother, maybe that helps us to have better behavior. I don't know. Maybe, but we're going to fail, certainly. And we will see those errors being made. This is why we need governing elders. This is why we need governance, to Lucas's point earlier. We have to look out for each other. We have to make sure that somebody isn't misusing those titles. You know, that can happen where someone says, hey, I'm the spiritual father. You have to do whatever I say. Well, you know, yeah, if we're all children, but not adults. So that, to me, family is two kind of forms. One is like with little kids and one is with adults. And this is a new revelation for me of what it's like to parent of adults. And they're free to do whatever they want. And they'll disagree with you as much as they agree with you, but they're still your kids. Yeah. So learning how to do that well, you're right to point that out as a problem, and we have to avoid it. But I don't think we should give up the metaphor, you know.
So wouldn't that creative go back to example, like foster care, but I almost feel better with foster parents or foster
It's more controlled, yeah.
Yeah, foster makes sense to me because there can't be but at the
Yeah.
same point,
Yeah, again, I think once we accept that we are family, then our next question is, how do we not be screwed up? And how do we do that in a way that isn't damaging to each other? And I think we're fully aware of how that can be damaging. I mean, one of the points that I wanted to make is to stay away from hierarchy and control. So one of the tips that I would give you is to avoid hierarchy and control. No, there is no hierarchy in healthy families. Listen, hear what I'm saying. There is no hierarchy in healthy families. There is just age and respect and demonstrated love over time. In healthy families, you do have matriarchs and patriarchs, but they don't boss people. They just been loving you longer, and they've been through more, and they've seen more, and they're trusted and respected. That's it. As soon as that person who's in that role starts bossing the system or whatever, that's an unhealthy family. That is not the kingdom. Right? But that's why my whatever comes next, where we say, okay, well, how do we make healthy spiritual families, healthy church families? Then to me, the issue is we avoid hierarchy and control. Control is never, ever, ever going to be a demonstration of love. Do you hear me? Never. Control is not a demonstration of love, unless you're talking about someone who's incapable of making their own decisions. A toddler needs your control. An adult does not. What else? I like the controversy. Yeah.
So, sounds like you, like, as a dad, I always get sensitive to food, like, so what I'm saying, because I feel like I can be in the midst of other kids, but still feel alone.
Yeah, and that's a strength. That's a strength you have. So obviously we don't want you to lose that. That's a gift. But thank you for the vulnerability and the honesty, because I think your willingness to say, look, my own upbringing probably shapes the way I come into this as a Christian. I think that's really profound. I think all of us need to do a little soul searching in that and say, how does where I come from, my family experience, shape or misshape my connection to the church? And my advice to you, if you're willing to hear some advice, is I think you should find two people within your sphere, and I think you should get explicit. I think the thing to do is to have the courage to break that force field and to say just sit down two people and say, can I make like a lasting covenant with you? Now that God can lead us wherever we want. There's no control there. But I want to verbally say to you and ask you to say to me, can we commit to each other as people, to walk with each other for the rest of our lives to wherever God leads us? I think that could be a profound act on your part, spiritual discipline, to sort of commemorate what already exists with all of us, brother. It's already there. You already have us. We are your family. But we all have our barriers. We all have our force fields that keep us from entering into those deeper relationships. And look, I'm not saying you should do that with everyone. I'm not saying every single Christian, you should just spill your whole life and be vulnerable. But if you have no one, explicit or not, whether it's understood or whether it's been said, then we are not partaking of sonship and daughtership, which has been already purchased for us. Let me give a couple real tips and then we'll close. Just some things I would say, a modest proposal. First, I think we should start calling each other brother and sister. So don't be weird. Not every time. I think we should bring that back a little bit. Not just in our language, but in our hearts. To actually recognize that I'm talking to a brother, I'm talking to a sister. And by the way, the sort of minority culture churches already still do this, so they never gave it up. So come on, white people, let's come back to the table. Let's come back to the family table. Yeah, let's just respect what Jesus has already done. 2, I would say, let's see the image of God in every believer you meet. So that means when I bump into another person, they say they're a Christian or they appear to be a Christian or my spirit testifies to their spirit that I see Christ in them, whatever they're, is to recognize that what you're actually taking a look at is a piece, a reflection of God himself, of the presence of God, the person of God in that human being. And this is profound and really important. And part of the reason why we don't enter into real relationships with each other is because we just don't see each other that way. I'm sorry, we don't. We've used the imago Dei, the image of God, in our work in justice and dignity. That's where we have applied imago Dei. We've applied it to the work of justice. In other words, when someone is being mistreated or marginalized, we say, that person is made in the image of God. Stop the abuse. Stop the injustice. That person is made in the image of God. What I'm saying is, can we also bring that into our day-to-day encounters with each other? That is to say, when I'm talking to somebody and they're boring me, because they just drone on and on and on, can I recognize in that moment the image of God is in this person? Or when they say something I disagree with, or they voted for somebody I don't want people to vote for, do I still see and believe the image of God is in that person? I stumbled this little Frederick Collins line recently. He said, there are 2 kinds of people, those that walk in a room and say, well, here I am, and the person that walks in and says, there you are. And there's something about a real Christian leader who walks in. When I walk into a room where my family, where my kids are there and stuff, I'm not like, here I am. That's not how I walk into a room. I'm so excited that they're here. You know, if Noah comes home, I'm happy that Noah's home. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm like, there you are. It's a sort of like, I don't know, fascination and love of the other person, not yourself. To see something really incredible and interesting. People are fascinating, guys. Even weird people, even people who are jerks. There's something in them that's like worth considering or looking at. Number 3, I would say respect this bond. I've already said this. God has already forged it. So acknowledge the bond is already there. 4, don't break over conflict. Families have conflict. Have conflict. Don't be afraid of conflict. Have it. Some families have a lot of conflict. Nothing wrong with that. But they stay family. So I would say this. Learn to fight and forgive. Learn to fight and forgive. Reconciliation is one of the greatest witnesses to the gospel and the power of the kingdom that we have. And the only way that reconciliation is possible is if we have conflict. So if reconciliation is one of the greatest ways we demonstrate Jesus and the kingdom, then we've got to sort of fall out with each other first before we can have those reconciliation times. But the sort of false harmony that we think we want to pursue, that's not helping us. So we need to be willing and able to have some beef with each other, have issues, not always perfectly resolve them, but come to a place of reconciliation and forgiveness and love. And again, you're not going to be able to do that with everybody, but you have to be able to do it with some people. And if all you ever do is just fall out with people, something's wrong with you. You're the problem. Next, I would say stay away from hierarchy and control. I already said that. Next, keep short accounts with each other. Don't be easily offended. Be quick to confront, but also quick to forgive and let things go. So half of it is like how easily we're offended by each other, how quickly we're... I think you need to be willing to confront people when you need to, and you also need to be willing to not confront people, because just calm down and just get over it. So I think it's probably 50-50. I'm just going to make up a percentage here. You're angry, you feel some sense of conflict. How about this? Half the time, go talk to the person. The other half the time, just calm down. Just let it go. Just be cool. Like people put up with you. Trust me, they are putting up with you. Just put up with that person. Just be like, I'll let it go. I'll let it slide. If you can't and you're losing sleep, go talk to them. But if you can, just be gracious. Be gracious. Guys, we could get away with a lot of stuff if we just were more gracious towards each other. 50-50. Some of you are like, cool, I'll do that with everything. No, you have to still go talk to people when you have a problem. Last couple things. Make a home, not a program. Microchurches are going to be better and last longer and be healthier versions and expressions of the church if you build something more like a home than a program. We always tend to start with programs. We create a script, essentially, and then we work off that script. House churches are a good example of this. We think, what's the script to run a house church? And then you run your house church on that script every time. And if I could give you one piece of advice, house church leaders, it would be this. Get off script. Get off your script. The path to community is not programmed. It is lived. Go off script. Scripts are for families that are acting. Do you hear what I'm saying? Scripts are for families that are pretending to be a family. Does your family need a program? Sammy, tonight, if you're going to have barbecue or something, do you need to get everyone together? Do you need to be like, all right, guys, first we're going to all have an icebreaker and share what happened for the day. Now we're all going to sit down. No. When a family comes together, the family's just together. You don't need a script. You are a family. You already are the thing that you're dreaming of. You are the dream come true. Know that. Live in it. Be that. Don't rely on the script, because the script actually will keep you from becoming the thing that God wants you to be. So how do you know you're doing that? That just means like whatever your pattern is, whatever your programmed approach to a house church or a Bible study on campus or whatever, be willing to break that every week in some way. Almost like you need to ask yourself, how will I be aware of the Spirit and be ready to just go in a different direction? That means maybe some nights you just don't even do anything that's on the script. Just because, why not? And no one's going to be like, well, that wasn't a real Bible study. Look, if they're doing that, then they're missing the point anyway. And that's not going to get you to family. A program is not a church. So get off script. A home, rather, is a place where people are welcome, but also allowed to leave and always welcome to come back. This is what we create around food, around relationships, around listening to each other. Guys, sometimes people will share something in a group context, and you just literally need to stop and just be like, let's just talk about that. Or let's just pray. Or we were going to study this passage, but actually it makes me think of this. Let's look at this instead. If you're never doing that, guys, you're just scripted. And it's acting. Last couple things I'll say. Value mirth. Value mirth. What is mirth? Merriment, yeah. Listen, I'm going to say this. I got some zingers today. You ready for this? Laughter is just important. It is just as important to laugh as it is to pray in your microchurch. It is just as important to laugh as it is to pray. And by the way, laughter comes from the same place as tears. Laughter is just another expression of vulnerability, which is why actually the cynic is the worst thing we can be, because it buries our hearts and we're dead even though we're walking through this life. So look, I toyed with the idea of giving you some types, like typology. Like these are the 7 kinds of people you need to have a really healthy family. And I won't go into that because we don't have time. But I'll tell you, one of them is the clown. Every healthy church, every healthy group needs a joker. And if you don't have one, go find one, go recruit one. In fact, they should be like super, like in soccer, they're like a striker or something. Like everybody wants a joker. Everybody needs a good one. And not that throws you off completely, but that loosens tension, that reminds us that we take things seriously, but we're not that serious. And honestly, if you've been in a group without said person, it's hard. It's rough. And maybe you're not that funny. Do it. Find a way. Try to be funnier or whatever you need to do. Find a way, man. Last two. Lay down your hurts. Lay down your hurts and try again. Some of you are resistant to really stepping deeper relationships with your microchurch or with other people because it didn't work the last time. Because you tried and got hurt. And I know that, and I acknowledge that, and I'm sorry for that. But this thing we're chasing is a fairy tale. But it's a true fairy tale. It's one that will come true. I heard this line recently. There are millions and millions of pathways toward the inevitable. And the inevitable is God will make his dwelling with human beings. The city will come from the sky down, and there will be no more tears, and there will be no more sadness, and his light will light up the city, and we will have union ultimately with him. This thing we're chasing, this family, this mystical family, is something we were already promised. It's something we will receive. And so yes, it's a fairy tale, and maybe we'll never get there, and maybe we'll just stumble along and have versions of it or attempts at it, but it's still a worthy fairy tale. It's still an enchantment we should feel. The last thing I'll say, don't try to be more than what you are. Families are not self-conscious things. Sometimes, maybe this has happened to you, maybe it hasn't. Sometimes I sit around and if a bunch of my kids are home or they're talking over at dinner or they're playing or we're watching something, and I just kind of look around the room and you recognize what you have, It doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, you feel like you're seeing through something. You're seeing through some kind of veil that you recognize that this is special, actually. This is a miracle. And you see the little relationships, the jokes, the inside speech, the affection that people have for each other, the trust, all these things which are so hard to come by in this world. And there they are, on full display. And you see that miracle in what we mistakenly consider ordinary moments, but they're not ordinary. And there God is in the mundane, people around a table trusting each other with their story of failure, with a laugh, reaching for God together, walking away somehow from that simple little gathering with a little bit of solace or a little more hope or a teaspoon of the medicine that will make them live forever. And if and when that's happening, it does you no good to walk away and go, how did we perform and how do we perform better? Guys, just stop being self-conscious. Just be the family that you already are. The people that sit around that room, whatever that room is, whether it's 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, whether they're really weird or they're addicted to drugs or they're angry or they have all kinds of issues or they have weird politics or whatever, those people around that table or sitting in that room, those people are extraordinary things. I felt led last night to reread C.S. Lewis's essay, The Weight of Glory. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest pieces of Christian literature in the 20th century. And he says this in that text. Next to the Blessed Sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. If he is your Christian neighbor, he is holy in almost the same way. For in him also Christ, the glorifier and the glorified, glory himself is truly hidden. And he goes on, it may be possible for each to think too much of his own potential glory hereafter, but it is hardly possible for him to think too often or too deeply about that of his neighbor. The load, the weight, or the burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back, a load so heavy that only humility can carry it, and the backs of the proud will be broken under it. Lord, I pray this morning for a new honor that each of us would feel and sense and know and honor your presence in our brothers and sisters. You have gone to great lengths. You have bent eternity itself to create a family. And we are the recipients of that family. God, forgive us for denying it. Forgive us for minimizing it. Forgive us for not seeing the weight of glory in our neighbor. And maybe even in ourselves. Lord, as we come to the table this morning, may we recognize that as we take the sacrament, that so too there is a sacrament in this communion we experience with each other. And the meal in many ways is just meant to symbolize that. It's meant to symbolize that through the breaking of your body and the shedding of your blood, you formed a new family. You formed a people out of people that were not a people. That's what you did. That's what you have done. And you sit at the right hand of God and you rule and reign from that sacrifice, from that great work. And this mystical union is there. It is forged by you. Help us to see it, to honor it, to build around it. And Lord, let's free these guys from the self-consciousness they feel in trying to make it happen. Instead, to feel the profound truth that it has already happened. In Jesus' name.